Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think there have been no shortage of issues to focus on when it comes to the activities of our National Park Service, our Forest Service, BLM, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. These are all clearly areas within my state where we are feeling most directly and immediately the impact of the government shutdown. But I think one thing that we are seeing play out, not only in the media, but as we talk to folks back home, is this inconsistency in application of what is closed, what is open. We have all witnessed the incident last week at the World War II Memorial, where many of our World War II vets literally stormed the World War II monument there, and in response, after a little bit of confrontation, our veterans were allowed to access the monument area. The thing that I find so just troubling and disconcerting is that these are open spaces. These are public open spaces where it's actually taken more resources of the Park Service to actually erect barriers and to close them off than were they to just leave them alone, allow members of the public to continue the opportunity to show tribute to our veterans, to show tribute to those who have served our nation. I'm told that the big part of the reason that we needed to close off these very, very open spaces, whether it's the World War II monument or whether it's the Martin Luther King monument, is because they're concerned that there might be some liability issues if somebody trips. How do we deal with that? And trash collection. Trash collection. I don't know. Maybe it's because I feel that we're seeing a shortage of personal responsibility anymore in this country. But I would think that at a time when the government is supposedly shut down, those who want to show their respects will kind of pick up after themselves. And I know that by saying that, it makes it sound so light. But if that's really a major part of the reason that that Park Service is not allowing access to these very open spaces, I think as Americans we can do a little bit better. We can figure out how we can take care of our treasures that are out there. There's been so many examples where we see in the news on a daily basis, whether it's the parking lot at Mount Vernon that has been closed off, and the parking lot is a private parking lot. It is not owned by the National Park Service. It seems, and this is not just my assumption, but it seems that agencies are working harder to keep people off of federal lands than they have ever worked before to get them to visit the lands. That seems wrong. That seems inconsistent. This, to me, it appears that this is a strategy to maximize the disruption associated with a shutdown rather than minimize it. It certainly has impacted private concessionaires who pay the rent to operate their small businesses in these areas. Again, it's led to closures of parking lots, open-air memorials, even the parkway pullouts. I know that as we move forward with this government shutdown, it was clearly meant to send a message, but I think it is a wrong message that has been sent. The Park Service should be working to help Americans through this difficult time, not attempting to make it more painful. And that's just the way it seems. It just seems that they're making it more painful. I had mentioned to you, Mr. Chairman, that I would like to introduce into the record a copy of a letter from the Governor of Alaska, Governor Parnell, directed to Secretary Jewell, dated October 4th. I would ask that it be included.
Without objection, so ordered.
What Governor Parnell relates is the inconsistency that we're seeing in my state between our federal agencies and how they are handling the government shutdown. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has prohibited all refuge hunting and fishing opportunities until the government reopens. But the National Park Service and BLM have allowed Alaskans to continue use and access. Now, when you think about what's going on in Alaska right now, this is moose season, this is hunting season, this is when Alaskans are filling up their freezer for a long winter. In so many of our communities, there is no Costco, there is no Safeway, there is no grocery store. Our parks, our refuges, our hunting areas are the grocery store. So when you have Fish and Wildlife say, we're going to close this area off to hunting, to everything other than subsistence, we're going to close it off, but over here on BLM lands, on Park Service lands, it's going to be open. There's a level of inconsistency that quite honestly doesn't make sense to Alaskans. And how can you argue with their point? Fish and wildlife policy has not only caused disruptions across the state, and this is wording from Governor Parnell, but it's inconsistent with the Alaska National Interest Lands Conservation Act, ANILCA. Federal law states that federal lands and waters are to be open and accessible without fees or permits. So it's not only a level of inconsistency, but you have Alaskans being denied rightful access to our federal lands that were promised, that were guaranteed under ANILCA. So it's difficult, again, for all during this shutdown. I think we all appreciate that. And I think it does create an awareness of the role that our government plays, particularly with our states that are so heavily endowed with federal lands, public lands. But I do think it is important that there be some level of consistency that is out there, and there clearly is not right now. So I commend Governor Parnell for standing up and working to protect the legal rights of Alaskans. I'm certainly here with him in that fight. We may be faced with a federal shutdown, but that doesn't mean that the agencies can ignore federal law. So I join the governor in calling on the Secretary of the Interior and the Department of Interior to ensure that national wildlife refuges within the state are accessible, and that the department should stop actively preventing the public use of open air spaces nationwide. Mr. Chairman, I know that colleagues, not only on this committee, but throughout the Senate here, have concerns and issues that they have raised about where we are with the government shutdown. This is not a good place for any of us. I think we would all agree that a government shutdown is not where any of us want it to be. There is no winning with this. Republicans are losing, Democrats are losing, the American public is losing when we continue with a government shutdown. There are no winners here. So I would like us to get beyond this so that we don't have these disagreements or these arguments, so that we don't have these situations where you have Alaskans that, again, are being denied their right, their opportunity to access our public lands, and that we get beyond this. This is not a good place for any of us. With that, Mr. Chairman, I thank you for the opportunity to say a few words.